Hello once again and welcome to the Disability Law Show. I am John Scholes. He is Sivan Tumarkin. James is absent today, but we've got a lot of stuff to cover regardless on this show, including 3 ways to make your long-term disability claims stronger, which is always a good thing. You want to reach out, 1-855-821-5900 anytime, help@disabilityrights.ca. That's the email address. We'll get to an email or two throughout the course of the show today. Mon Frere, how are you? You got lots to talk about. Week that was, what's on the docket?
Well, again, very, very busy week, John. Yep. And, I want to make sure that I explain to our viewers, the ones that are just tuning in for the first time, that James and I, James when he's here, and the rest of the team, we're lawyers. We're disability lawyers. We're injury lawyers. That's what we do day in and day out. And so we're not just here to give you this information. We're actually here to help you or help anyone that is in need of this information and of our help. So let me tell you about an interesting call that I had this week. Okay. And this was an individual from just outside of Vancouver because, of course, we do our work across Ontario and across BC. We have offices in both provinces. And this individual, he's 48 years old. He's a mechanic, worked as a mechanic for quite a few years. And he's experiencing not only chronic back pains for which he's getting treatments from his family doctor and a chronic pain specialist, but he also has depression and anxiety and everything that is associated with someone who now feels that he can't contribute to the household. And so his psychologist had recommended that he does more in the outdoors, perhaps goes for coffee with friends, or perhaps he goes for walks in the park when the weather's good. It's a mental therapy. It's very important, very, very important. And he did that. Well, he's been on long-term disability for just over a year, and guess what? He just got a letter last week where his disability benefits were cut off. Right. And they were cut off on the basis of surveillance that the insurance company had done. And that surveillance, essentially, the report, what it showed or what it said is that we've seen you going to Tim Hortons on so-and-so date. Yeah. We've seen you walk a dog, for half an hour on that date. It was a whole bunch of little details about stuff that he's been doing for the last few months. And, of course, he was shocked because he's following his doctor's advice.
He was told to do those
things. He was told that it would be better for his mental health and, frankly, for his physical health. Now, the fact that you go to Tim Hortons for a coffee and the fact that you can walk your dog for half an hour and walk here and there does not mean that you are able to work. And by the way, this guy has been working for over 30 years in that same job. You're not talking about somebody who's been off and on work.
He's not a malinger.
He's not. Yeah. He's not one of those people.
He's a worker.
He's a worker, exactly. So I thought it was very unfair. And of course, I told him we can help. There's not even a question. We can definitely help him. I reviewed the letter. I looked at some of the letters from the psychologist, the chronic pain doctor. No question in my mind that we can help him. We can definitely get the insurance company or force the insurance company to pay him what he's owed. But the lesson here that I want people to understand is this. Insurance companies have a whole bunch of tools at their disposal, in their arsenal, so to speak, in terms of either forcing you off claim, denying your claim, cutting you off claim, trying to force you back to work. They'll try a lot, including getting surveillance on you. And John, I don't know if you ever had anybody follow you, but it's a scary thing, especially people who are already dealing with mental health challenges. But insurance companies are allowed to do that. The question is, what can you do in return if they use that to cut you off benefits or if they use that to deny your benefits? Well, there's a lot that you can do. And that's what I did. I explained to him what it is that we can do. And the first thing that I said is that we can start that legal claim against the insurance company. What that will do immediately is it will create an internal shift within the insurance company. His claim will then move to a different department. It will be handled by a different adjuster and by a defense lawyer.
Which is actually good because it moves it along, right?
It moves it along. And
Don't be scared of it.
Yeah. Absolutely not. It means the insurance company is now spending money to deal with this case, whereas before they had this one adjuster deal with 100+ claims. It didn't cost them much to deal with your case. So when we start that legal claim, not only is it good for you now that there is a defense lawyer involved, because that defense lawyer will tell the insurance company their legal exposure.
They understand the game.
Exactly. Yeah. But in addition to that, we get their file. We can see all of the surveillance. We can see everything internal. We can poke holes at their position, and that allows us to force the insurance company to the table to pay our clients what they are owed. And again, that's what we do. So I'm not talking theoretically. I'm saying this is what we do each and every day.
You know, when it comes to surveillance, now you just mentioned that they can't do it. They do have the resources for it. I'm thinking maybe A, it's probably not cheap, and B, because of that reason, would they not try their hardest to glean something from it that they can use against you, even if, on the odd occasion, maybe it works in your favor as a defense?
100%. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And in fact, I will share something with, again, some viewers that may not know this. I used to work for insurance companies in the distant past. And some of the other lawyers at my firm that do disability work and injury work, we used to work for insurance companies in the distant past. So I actually used to order surveillance on behalf of my insurance masters in the past. So I'll tell you this, it's not cheap. And insurance companies don't like to spend that money. And even when they spend that money, oftentimes they get nothing. Like in the case of this individual that I just started the segment with, the fact that the surveillance shows him going to Tim Hortons and in fact following his doctor's advice, I'm going to use that as proof that he's in fact following treatments. I'm going to use that within the context of the legal claim to show that the insurance company has grossly mischaracterized what we see on tape. So don't be afraid of these things. If you know you're disabled, if you are legitimately unable to work because of an illness or an injury or a combination of both, and your doctors say you are disabled, they should not be cutting you off, they should not be denying your claim, and we can force them. I stress the word force because they're not going to come to the table willingly. We can force them to the table and write a check and pay you what you are owed. It's that simple.
Simple as reaching out is 1-855-821-5900. There's also a very cool website. It's reasonably new, last few weeks anyway, called pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Now, as the title would say, it's for pocket employment lawyer. If you have employment matters, there's tons of topics having to do with workplace harassment. Are you a contractor? Are you not a contractor? All these different things. But there was also a section in there as well built into the Pocket Employment Lawyer about disability law. Explain it.
Yeah, so before I get to that section, I just want to make sure our viewers understand. At our firm, we have employment lawyers who deal with individuals who are either being harassed by their employers or have been fired by their employers or whatever, anything that deals with employment. But we also have disability lawyers, which is my group, and we work in tandem. Because in many instances, people who are disabled have issues with their employers, and people who are having issues with their employment end up going on disability as a result of that. So in the Pocket Employment Lawyer tool, which is anonymous and it's free, you can go you can fill in whatever you want to fill in to get answers about your specific case. But at the bottom, there's actually a long-term disability section where if you want to understand more about your rights as it relates to long-term disability, or if you have an injury claim, you've been injured in an accident, and that's why you're having issues either with disability or with your employment. Again, going there and checking off a few boxes, that interesting little tool will give you the information you need, those answers. Forget about Google. Forget about trying to figure out what the answers are, you know, in the vast space of Google where you're going to get conflicting information. This is specific legal information for Canadians, Canadian law, specifically in Ontario and British Columbia. You want to check out that tool. And if you know anyone who may be of need of it, go to it, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. It's absolutely free. Yeah,
it took you guys so long to build it, and man, is it worth it if you just stop by again anonymously and have a look at it and surf around in it for a while. Pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Email address, help@disabilityrights.ca. First one for today is Petra. Says, I worked in the clothing industry for 25 years, but recently there have been some major changes where I work. I've been on short-term disability because of severe migraines and mental health issues, and will be applying for LTD next. I'm afraid that if I'm let go from my job before I'm able to apply for LTD, that I will not be able to apply. In other words, she'll miss it because she won't be working. What should I do?
So, you know, Petra just, again, struck a chord, right, on the issue of pocket employment lawyer. She's dealing with an employment issue as well as a disability issue. Here's the answer to Petra's question. If you become disabled while you still have coverage, disability coverage through work, then that's what counts. Not that it doesn't matter if you've been let go. I mean, that is important because we have to deal with that issue of severance and potential human rights violations, right? You can't let someone go who is on disability or who is disabled and is about to apply for disability. Again, we can help people in that situation. But what's important to understand, what's absolutely critical to understand, is that if you became disabled while you had disability coverage, it doesn't matter from that standpoint that you've been let go. You can still apply for disability. That doesn't mean that the insurance company won't come back and say, well, you're not working there anymore.
You don't get it.
You don't get it. You have no coverage. No. We look at the date or the approximate time frame when the doctors say you became disabled from working. And then we figure out, did you have coverage during that time? And if you did, you are eligible for long-term disability or short-term disability, whatever the case may be. So you have to understand that it depends on when you became disabled and when you had coverage. And if those two overlap, you have a case.
Coming up here, 3 ways to make your LTD claim even stronger. We'll get to that very shortly. In the meantime, phone number 1-855-821-5900. Help at disabilityrights.ca. Disability Law Show. Lots more is on the way. Stick around. We're coming right back.
You lost your job. They only gave you 2 weeks of severance per year worked. But where can you find out what you're really owed?
I'm going to severancepaycalculator.com.
Find out how much you're owed right now. severancepaycalculator.com.
You've been denied long-term disability. You think you're powerless, but you have a lot more power than you think. I'll tell you a secret. It's a numbers game for the insurance company. They're betting on you walking away from money that they owe you. Don't make that mistake. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to disabilityrights.ca. You lost your job. They said they had a good reason, but you think you've been wrongfully dismissed. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
And welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. The Disability Law Show. John Scholes, Sivan Tumarkin. We always throw out tidbits of information. We have a topic every week, and we like to break it down, get to some points, and clear it up for everybody involved, including you and me and you, Sivan, as well, just to reiterate some of the stuff you talk about every week in the firm. This week it is this: 3 ways to make your long-term disability claim even stronger than it is. Number 1 is get referrals to specialists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I again, speaking as someone who used to work for insurance companies in the past, specifically on injury claims. Unfortunately, and I say this, you know, because this is just the way that insurance companies view these things, there is a hierarchy in how they assess the medical reports they receive. It's almost like a poker game for them, where you have some cards that have more weight than other. You know, a king is higher than a queen, an ace is higher than a king. By the same token, you know, they see a non-MD, a non-doctor as here, they see a doctor as here, and within that doctor category, they have a family doctor, then they have the specialist above that family doctor. And I'm not saying that that's how it is, because, I mean, God knows there are some treatment providers who don't have medical degrees that are phenomenal.
You bet.
Absolutely phenomenal. And there's some family doctors who are amazing. But insurance companies are, I would say, more persuaded oftentimes by what they see is a specialist's opinion. And if you have a subspecialist, right, so you have an orthopedic surgeon, but then you have an orthopedic surgeon that specializes in knees, and you have a knee issue, suddenly that person has even more gravitas.
Right.
So the problem that I often see is that family doctors or walk-in clinics doctors don't refer you to specialists. So you have a mental health issue, for example, but you're not being referred out to a psychologist. Or a psychiatrist, or you have a chronic pain issue and you're not being referred out to a physiatrist or to a chronic pain specialist. Now listen, I'm not a doctor, so I defer to those doctors' opinions. All I'm saying is that if you have a certain illness or injury that require a specialist to help you, like an orthopod, like a physiatrist, a psychiatrist, you know, be a neurologist, you want to make sure that you are that squeaky wheel with your doctor and ask for a referral. Because I can tell you, if you have a neurological issue and your family doctor is the one writing the letter saying you can't work, that's not going to have as much weight with the insurance company as if you have a neurologist in conjunction with your family doctor, meaning the family doctor says you can't work and the neurologist explains it from the neurological perspective. That's a much stronger case. I'm telling you, that's how insurance companies view it. Not to mention the fact, by the way, that that's probably better for you. Because if you see a specialist, you may actually get the treatments you're supposed to get. Right? It's their specialty. Yeah. So that's one way to do it. Get referrals to specialists. Even if your doctor doesn't think about referring you to a specialist, perhaps ask your doctor, prod your doctor, do I need to see a person, a psychiatrist or whoever that may be able to help me?
An interesting aside to that is if you flip it around to the insurance company, sometimes they will cut you off benefit and you'll go see one of their consultants, and
Yes.
that's supposed to carry weight. We don't know what a consultant is.
Yeah. Oftentimes they'll cut you off on the basis of opinions of a non-doctor, or you'll have a certain type of an illness or an injury, let's say neurological injury, and they'll have a family doctor give an opinion that contradicts your neurologist opinion.
Right.
So again, think about this. If we start a legal claim, and if by chance your case got to court, I'm not saying that it will, because the vast majority of these cases never go to court. Insurance companies are afraid of court. If that happened, who will a judge listen to? The GP, the family doctor that the insurance company hired to review your case, or the neurologist that's treating you? Most likely the neurologist that's treating you. So you're absolutely right, John. Insurance companies make that mistake themselves all the time.
Second way to make your disability case stronger, make sure your doctors continue to send reports to the insurer. We've covered this on a past show. Keep them up to date, right?
Yes. I'm not talking about going to your doctor every single day. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to be reasonable, right? I mean, if you haven't been at your doctor's for a few months, you may want to go and get a report or a letter saying this person continues to experience the following symptoms that are disabling them from working. And if you're dealing with a specialist, oftentimes you will have that follow-up appointment in 3 months or 6 months or whatever. Get a note from them that again confirms that you are still experiencing those symptoms, if in fact you are. You want to make sure that the insurance company has current medical documentation. They would love nothing more than to send you a letter in the mail saying we're cutting off your benefits because we don't have anything current and because we don't have anything substantiating that you continue to be disabled from working. Now, oftentimes, they will not just cut you off. They will actually ask you to provide that. So again, if they're asking you to provide updated medical reports, opinions from your doctors about the status of your disability, see that as not as a red flag, but as a warning sign. If you do not provide them with that, they will take the position that they don't have sufficient current information to keep you on claim. So I know there is a cost to these letters. Unfortunately, you have to bear them as the claimant. It's just the way the system is. But if you don't do it, you compromise your benefits.
We are talking about the 3 ways to make your LTD claim stronger. Number 3 is this, and this one's kind of a no-brainer, really. Make sure you comply with all the treatments prescribed by your medical team, right?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, except that insurance companies, again, twist this. So you do have an obligation under your insurance policy, and frankly, you have an obligation at law. Okay, even if you're not dealing with LTD, you're dealing with an injury claim, to follow the recommendations of your treatment providers. If your family doctor says you got to do X and Y, you should do X and Y, unless, for whatever reason, you can't. But insurance companies will twist that. I've had situations where the psychiatrist, as an example, prescribed a medication, and the individual tried that medication and it makes them nauseous. And they decide not to take it, not to follow it, not to follow the recommendation, but they didn't tell the psychiatrist.
Right.
Subsequently, the insurance company got the records from the psychiatrist. They see that this person is not following those recommendations, and they take the position that this person is causing or continuing to cause their own illness or their own symptoms because they're not following treatment recommendations. So what you want to do in that situation is not do that. You want to have a conversation with your doctor, and maybe your doctor will prescribe something else. The thing is this, you want to make sure that not only do you follow those recommendations, because it's probably good for you, and if it's not good for you, have that discussion with your treating provider, but you also want to make sure that from a documentary standpoint, it doesn't look, the optics cannot be that you're not following
It's got to be ironclad.
It's got to be, because if not, trust me, they will pounce on that and they'll cut you off, and then it's difficult to deal with the insurance company if in fact you haven't been following recommendations. Next
question we have after a break, and I wish James was here. He'd love to sink his teeth into this one. That is, what is total disability? We'll get to that after we come back after a short one. Stick around, 1-855-821-5900 and disabilityrights.ca online as well. Disability Law Show. More is coming up. See you in a bit.
You were being harassed, and when you said something about it, you're the one who lost your job. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
Insurance companies deny long-term disability claims all the time. They give lots of excuses. Don't give up. I've seen it all. They've ignored your doctors, they've ignored you. You're angry and you're frustrated. But there's hope. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to disabilityrights.ca. You thought you had a secure job. You didn't see it coming. Now what do you do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
Hi there, welcome back. This is the Disability Law Show. If you're just joining us, welcome in. If you're stuck around, well, we're glad you stuck around. Lots more is on the way. John Scholes, Sivan Tumarkin, of course, a disability lawyer with the firm. You want to reach out anytime. It's 1-855-821-5900 and help@disabilityrights.ca. Another resource, we mentioned this before, check it out, mydisabilityquestions.com. You can go there, you can ask your questions. They will get answered in depth and quickly from Sivan or possibly James or a member of your team. Try it out, mydisabilityquestions.com if you have any questions. Donalda writes one in, and we'll get to it now. She says, my sister suffers from schizophrenia and has been seeing a psychiatrist for the past 5 years. She's not doing well, and the psychiatrist is trying different medications. She's 38 years old. And I helped her apply for long-term disability through her work. But she was denied her application because the insurance company said that she is not totally disabled. I don't understand what that means. If her psychiatrist says she can't work, she was denied. Can she reapply?
So first of all, Donalda, thank you for writing in. And again, John, this is an example of a concerned family member reaching out to us. So it's not just the people who are experiencing issues with long-term disability. It's if you know someone, if you have a friend, a family member, a colleague, make sure that they contact us because we will be able to help them, at the very least give them the information they need. Let's deal with Donalda's question here about her sister. Very tragic. Schizophrenia is a terrible illness. Here's the thing. Totally disabled. I get this all the time. If I tell you, John, you know, this was a car crash and the car was totaled, you're thinking it's destroyed.
It's done.
It's completely done. Absolutely. That's what insurance companies want you to think about the test or the criteria you have to meet for disability. They want you to think that you have to be destroyed, you have to be in a coma, you have to be brain dead, you have to be, you know, amputated legs.
Quadriplegic in a wheelchair.
No,
Yeah,
it's not that. It's a fictional term that they've invented to essentially suppress claims. Now, I will put a caveat on that. It's my opinion, but it's an opinion that is shared not only by me, by a lot of lawyers that do exactly what I do, and off the record by many defense lawyers that I know who have shared that same thing with me. So here's the thing. What is totally disabled? When you're told you are not totally disabled and therefore you don't get long-term disability, all it means is that within the context of what the insurance company is looking for, they don't think that you are disabled enough from doing substantial aspects of your job. So let's put this in layman's terms. Let's say you have a mechanic, and the mechanic is having chronic back pain. Okay? I have people like that calling me all the time. They do jobs that are very difficult.
Bending over the hoods of cars all day, yeah.
They can go grocery shopping. They can do maybe even some grass cutting. They can do some of that, but they can't do the job, their own occupation that they've been doing for God knows how many years. And that would qualify them or should qualify them for LTD so long as their doctors are saying that they cannot do significant portions of their job, of their occupation.
Not in a wheelchair.
Not in a wheelchair.
Coma.
Exactly.
They can't do
absolutely, exactly. So that's very important to understand. It doesn't mean that you are catatonic. It just means that you can't do significant aspect of your own occupation. So that's for the first 2 years.
Right.
Beyond the 2-year mark, once you've been on LTD for 2 years, the test expands, and then the question becomes, can you do any occupation for which you're suited for by training, education, or experience? Again, you don't have to be disabled to the point that you can't get out of bed. That's not one of those.
Your auto mechanic example, could he teach out of college?
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
He still can't use his back to do his job, but could he teach?
Exactly. If he can teach, well, then he can do that other occupation for which he presumably has some training or experience or education in. But they can't tell him to go at work at Tim Hortons. Nothing wrong with working there, but that's not the equivalent.
You say equivalent, you mean because it's got to be, the compensation has to be within a realm?
Yeah, he's got to be able to make, generally the test is that he's got to be able to make about 65% of the income that he was making. So essentially he should be able to get a job that pays him what
commensurate
the LTD,
income to what
commensurate,
he was.
exactly, what the LTD was paying him. So very, very important to understand. Now, in Donalda's sister situation, remember, she's saying she has a psychiatrist that says that she cannot work.
Okay.
That is powerful, powerful medical proof. the insurance company should absolutely have approved her. And what we can do here is we can start that legal claim, and I can tell you, John, I can force the insurance company to the table. They will pay her. Do not reapply, do not appeal, do not go through the charade that the insurance company wants you to go through their internal processes of appealing those decisions. Yeah. Let us do what we know how to do, which is to force the insurance company to the table to pay you what you're owed.
You know, before we move on to one last email, I got to say, we said it before, that term total disability, whoever in the insurance company came up with that one, high five. That's brilliant. A good term, man. You've shaken a lot of people off claim with total disability.
It should really not be that. It should really be disabled from doing substantial portions of your job.
Yeah.
Or
that's not scary enough.
Well, it's not scary enough. No,
right?
No, it doesn't confuse enough. And by the way, this confuses doctors too. Mm-hmm. Because doctors see that and they say, no, my patient is not totally disabled.
Right. Gotcha.
It's an unfair term, but it's not legislated. It's not, the government didn't put this together. The insurance industry put this together.
Got a few minutes left. I'm going to slide in a quick email. My friend Manny writes in again, help@disabilityrights.ca, says my insurance company wants to send somebody to my home to stay with me for a few hours to see how I move around the house. I've been on LTD for 5 months now. They say they don't have a clear picture of my condition from my doctor. I don't feel comfortable having someone come to my house to observe me. But they told me I have to agree or my insurance will be cut off. What should I do? Can they cut off my insurance if I decline their house call?
So the answer, Manny, is that yes, they can. The question is, are they allowed to force you into the situation?
Right.
So I want to touch on two issues. Number one, the first issue is oftentimes insurance companies will want to have a claimant assessed by someone on their team or someone external that they've hired. Okay. You have to go through that assessment. You have to go through that. It's in the policy. But that leads me to the second point, which is that whatever they ask you to do, if you're uncomfortable with it, ask the adjuster to point you to where in the policy, the LTD policy that applies to you, where it says that they have the right to ask you to do something. Because at the end of the day, your obligations to the insurance company start and end with the LTD policy.
It's governed.
And conversely, the obligations of the insurance company start and end in the policy. So whenever an insurance company asks for something that a claimant may feel is unreasonable or I feel is unreasonable, in fact, even this morning, I sent an email on behalf of my client asking the adjuster, point me to the provision in the policy that says you can do this. Because if there is no such provision, you can't ask my client to do so. It's that simple. So that's what you need to understand. They can't just ask you and force you to do anything you want. Now, as to whether or not they can cut you off, they can cut you off for any reason. They can cut you off because you have no hair, John.
Sure.
They cut me off because I'm wearing a blue suit.
That you can't help.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they have a legal basis, legal grounds. Yeah. We can challenge them. And by challenge, I mean we can force them to come to the table and pay you what you're owed because they're not entitled to do that. But you don't know that unless we explain that to you and show you, in your specific case, the options you have of challenging the insurance company's denials.
You want to send an email as well, you can do that anytime, even when the show's not on, help@disabilityrights.ca. Last couple minutes, and I'll take us home. What do you think?
So, John, one of the things I want to tell people out there is that there are a lot of people who are in great need of an injury lawyer, a disability lawyer, an employment lawyer. Be very careful of the lawyer or the law firm you choose. The law firm you choose, the lawyer you choose is going to dictate ultimately the results you're going to get. You don't want to go with your disability claim to a person who says that they do real estate law and family law. That time is over. Just like you go to a medical specialist nowadays, if you have a specific medical issue, in the same way you go to somebody who has specific expertise in that area of law. I would only go to a real estate lawyer if that's all they do, or a family lawyer if that's all they do. If you don't, you are in for a world of pain because there's so much information and nuance about injury law, disability law, and employment law that if you don't do that, if you don't take that care, it's going to be a problem and you're going to see it's going to be a problem and then nobody's going to be able to untangle the mess. Now, we do only 2 areas of law, disability and injury law, that's one section, and employment law. Yep. We have a reputation within BC and in Ontario for that. People know us by that, law firms know us by that, insurance companies know that this is what we do, and that carries weight. And that affects the settlement at the end of the day.
Good for another day. Good way to wrap it up. You want to reach out, it's just that simple, 1-855-821-5900. help@disabilityrights.ca is the email. We mentioned we mentioned that as well, mydisabilityquestions.com. And also the website where you can catch a TV show and radio shows, that's simply disabilityrights.ca. Thank you once again for joining us at Disability Law Show. We'll catch you next time.